Hello, everybody, and welcome to a special live broadcast of this video that I was originally thinking of doing just pre-recorded and then uploading it to YouTube. But instead, I thought, it would be good to share this live. That way, it's good for Q&A, as we will be getting into Q&A at the end of the presentation today. But today's presentation is all about a practical guide to self-realization. All right. So this is going to include a PowerPoint presentation where I have quite a few slides, and I'll be going through the process of self-realization, using it as a practical guide for yourself. So in one of my newest videos, I was talking about self-realization as well too. And there have been some questions saying, well, Brad, how do we do it? How do we actually do self-realization? How does it happen? So this is exactly why I'm creating this video today. Again, it's kind of unannounced, it's kind of spontaneous, but hey, that's how I work. Right? So the presentation today is really going to look deeply into the process of going into self-realization and utilizing this as a practical guide regarding self-realization. Now we have to understand that when we're moving into self-realization, it is unlike anything that has ever been shared on this YouTube channel before, right? There's always been subjects that kind of touch on it, but being able to look at this as a practical guide is really going to open your eyes in a new way. Some people can actually get angry about the idea of what self-realization truly is and what it entails, right? Because it really is the dismantling of everything that is ego. It is the dismantling of everything that is mind, right? It is the stripping away of all illusions until you come into the one permanent truth, to know that you are self, to know that you are God. So we're going to be looking into that today through the practical guide to self-realization, walking the creative path to know the I, God, self. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. What is the essence of self-realization? Well, one who is realized has made the conscious decision to leave behind everything representing an impermanent, ignorant world. A realized one has not lost anything. On the contrary, they have gained everything, as they now know the self, God. A realized one now exists in permanent happiness, freedom, and bliss, as they hold no concerns, animosities, or burdens within them. A realized one acknowledged that the ego and intellect were their greatest setbacks, and seeing who they really are. A realized one has no personal ambition. They are in alignment to the one will, and follow that one will through the remainder of their life. So when you are coming into self-realization, your very nature, everything that represents life, is permanence, right? You know the truth. The reason why I'm sharing these teachings on self-realization is because this is where I am, right? Going into self-realization. And it's a path that only a few people really go down. It's not a long list of people who have reached this level of self-realization. I wouldn't say a level, but have really reached this alignment of self-realization. Right? There's a lot of conflict when it comes to a person who is self-realized, right? A self-realized one is basically going out to the world and telling everybody that the way the world is wrong, right? It's not meant with a very popular response. I'm not really going to go into that too much, but again, that is really what self-realization is. It's stripping away the world. It's stripping away the mind. It's stripping away the intellect. It's stripping away the ego. It's stripping away space and time. It's stripping away karma. It's stripping it all away until there is the one truth. To know that you are self. That you know God and God knows you. And that you are the self. And you are in permanent bliss, permanent happiness. Right? So this has not really been well received throughout the course of history, which is quite strange because it's the truth of all of us, right? Whether you believe that what you are hearing here and now today is real or not, doesn't matter, right? When you strip everything away, this is what you realize. This is how it is, right? Whether a person is ready to hear it or not, right? If you're watching this video, you're curious, you're interested about this. So we're going to dive deeper into understanding self-realization, and again, how you can use this as a practical guide. Well, how is self-realization achieved? The process of walking the path of self-realization, which I've also referred to as the creative path, is to discover within yourself where ignorance resides. Ignorance consists of egoic conditioning, impermanent desires, personal traumas, and emotional conflicts. Using one or several techniques of your choosing to eliminate all discovered traits of ignorance within yourself. Full achievement of attaining self-realization and removing ignorance comes through two known methods. Number one, self-enquiry, or methods similar to self-enquiry, founded by Sri Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi. Or methods of surrendering yourself to the self, to God, forfeiting all responsibilities to self-God. Now, both methods really bring you there, to the idea where you are God and God is you, to where you are the self and self is you, right? So when we're walking this path of self-realization, the greatest deterrent in the way is the ego. And the ego is to be destroyed. It is to be dismantled. It is to be eliminated. Because again, it's nothing but a boundary. It's a border. It's an artificial construct. And it basically acts like a poison. It acts like a virus, right? Really, when we look at the nature of man here today, everything that revolves around this world involving man has been brought in through the ego, right? All wars are caused by ego. You're not going to have wars when you are the true self, right? When you are the self, you never think about conflict. You never think about chaos. You never think about confusion, right? So the wars, the fights, the battles, the skirmishes, all of the conflicts, all the hardships, people not getting along with each other, people feeling separate from one another, all of it is because of the ego. Every single bit of it, right? And, you know, there's those people that are kind of in the new age and just say, well, you know what, you just have to love the ego. Well, I don't. There's nothing about the ego that I love because it's nothing but a boundary. It's nothing but a construct. It's nothing but an artificiality. It's superficial, right? We have just given into it because, again, we are part of a system that really just praises the ego, that we want to confuse people, that we want to put them in chaos, that we want to get them into conflicts, we want them fighting each other. And for that to happen, the ego has to reign supreme. The ego likes to think that it is the king or the queen that's sitting on the throne with the crown on their head. But that's not the case. That's nothing but an illusion. When you bring love into yourself, guess what the first thing that love does? It strips away the ego. It kills it. That's what love does. Love is basically like the sunlight, and you could think of the ego as a gigantic block of ice, right? And the sunlight, we're getting so much warmth, right? The environment is getting hotter and hotter, and that ice is melting away. It is dissolving itself entirely until it becomes nothing but liquid. It liquefies, it dissolves, it deteriorates, it dismantles. That is what we're here to do with the ego, right? That's what love does. Love is clearing away everything unnatural. It goes back to what Jesus once said, is that every single plant that my Heavenly Father has not planted will be pulled up by its roots, right? That's exactly what happens. When we bring love in, we're pulling away all of these weeds. We're pulling out all of this debris. We're pulling out all of this unnatural energy that is within ourselves, and it is going to be deteriorated. It's going to dry up, and it's going to be tossed into a fire, and it's going to be burned. In the old times, before we used the term ego, the ego was often referred to as the devil. It was often referred to as the evil one. It was often referred to as a demon in that way, because they did not have the word ego, right? So they saw it as something evil. They saw it as something devilish, something demonic, right? Many different cultures have many different names for it, but it was very much in that type of context, right? That's what the ego is, and the ego and the ignorance, right? The ignorance is really what's brewing all of those conditions, all of those barriers, all of those boundaries around you, telling you that, oh yeah, we should be prideful and arrogant, and fighting our fellow brothers and sisters and getting into combat and getting revenge, getting angry and getting apprehensive. These are all unnatural things, right? So you'll excuse me if I have absolutely no compassion for the ego whatsoever, because it's nothing but a construct, and it gets dissolved through the exercising of love, right? So that's what we have to remember. Ego is something that is going to be dissolved when you bring love forward. The world is mind, and mind is impermanence. As long as you stay confined to the things of the world, you will never be free of it. The world only knows how to give pleasure and pain. What we cling to that we believe gives us happiness only lasts a short time, and you return to suffering once again. It is like chewing gum that is constantly losing its flavor. Empty pleasures and temporary happiness. You will not find permanent happiness through the body, the world, the mind. It is incapable of that, as it is all impermanent, right? It's all cycles. It's all shifting. It's all changeability, right? Everything's going to change. It's going to be that gum that loses its flavor, and you're going to spit it out. Ego and ignorance want to convince you to keep following happy pursuits, but in time, they all run dry and lose their flavor. The mind itself is a construct of thoughts. Thoughts are temporary things. For true happiness, bliss, and love, you will not find it through the world, which is mind. True, unending, eternal happiness, bliss, and love can only be found through permanence. And the permanence is the self. The self is all that that exists. It is God. It is source. It is I. It is the source of all bliss and perfection. There is nothing else. You are the self. Everything is God. There's nothing else. There's nothing else but God. There's nothing else but the self. There's nothing else but I. Right? That's all that there really is. When you strip everything away, the true reality, who you truly are, is permanence. You are permanence. You are unchanging. You are bliss. You are perfection. You are ever present. You are in every single thing, yet you are still. That's the nature of the self. That is God. And that's who you are. The self-realized remain in this eternal permanent happiness, and through this the mind becomes dissolved, and all that remains is the self. This is what the ancient masters have done and have attempted to share with us. Like I said, it was not received well. Again, when you basically look at a world that has been run by ego, it's not going to be it's not going to be warmly welcomed by the people, right? Because they have been under the convincing of feeling that we have to be separate, we have to be individuals, we have to be personalities, we have to be angry, we have to be upset, we have to be sad, we have to be fearful, we have to look at all these things, we have to get revenge, we have to be aggressive, we have to be apprehensive, right? We have to do all of these separate, based, individualized things. Then self-realization is telling them right to their face, what you're doing is wrong. The life that you are living is wrong. Everything that you are doing right now on the world is wrong. And of course, that's not going to be well received. They're going to want to go with pitchforks and torches and take you out. I mean, look what they did to Jesus. Look what they did to his disciples. Look what he did to Jesus' followers. Look at all the people in the ancient past who have attempted to share this. They were not met with a warm welcome, right? In fact, many of them thought that they were a devil, that they have a demon inside them, right? That they're just arrogant and that they're trying to confuse us and they're trying to take everything away from us, right? And that is how the self-realized have been looked at for thousands of years. This is not a thing that's going to get you a lot of friends, really, in the best way I can put it, right? Even today, right? Even when I'm talking about this, when I go through the entire presentation, there will be people that say, oh, come on, Brad, what are you talking about? You're telling us to get rid of logic and to get rid of all this stuff and to get rid of the ego and transcend space and time. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm telling you. And so again, it's not going to be a popular thing, but nonetheless, it's the truth. Dismantle the ego and your ignorance. It is unnatural and behaves no differently from a virus or a poison. There is nothing beneficial about it. The self deconstructs it until its function of sabotage and conditioning ends completely, right? It's like you're just seeing everything melt away. That certainly is being my experience as of late, right? I'm seeing everything relating to the veils and the illusions of reality being stripped away. Not because I'm angry, not because I'm upset, quite the opposite. That I am happy and that I am in that love. I feel the self. You're holding that alignment to self, and you're feeling this love just come over you, right? And when people feel extremely tense and aggressive, you feel happy, right? And when they're feeling happy, you feel blissful, right? It continues to bring about this pure, permanent happiness because you know that you are God. You know God. You know the self. You don't suffer anymore. Suffering only happens through impermanence. It does not happen through the permanent self, right? It's the nature of the self that is permanent. There is no suffering. There is only bliss. Okay? Moving on. Walking the creative path of self-realization. So why do I call it the creative path? Well, because it's the creative. We're looking at the unmanifest. That is where God resides. That is where the self is. It is in the creative force. It is in the creative. That which is not manifest, that which does not hold material, right? That which is completely and totally isness is the best way to put it. It's changeless. There's imageless. There's no face of God. There's no voice of God. It's just is, right? I'll be getting into that shortly. So walking the creative path of self-realization. Firstly, you must commit yourself to self-exploration and examination. This means focusing on inward reflection and examining the inner being. You want to know what burdens hold you back from getting to know who you really are. Such examples of personal burdens or setbacks are 1. Emotional conflicts, reacting with sadness, anger, fear, pertaining to people, places, events, and things. Second thing is personal traumas, abandonment, rejection, abuse. Again, I've talked about this in past videos. Belief systems, mental obstacles, addictions, obsessions. It is highly recommended that you utilize a notebook journal or a digital device to keep track of your day, as well to create a list of ignorance that we will work to eliminate later on. In your journal, you want to be aware of the following. Okay, what conflicts happened to you today? Is it emotional, traumatic belief systems? How did you react to those conflicts? What is your thought on the conflict now that you're examining it? After you have notated the conflict, set your journal aside and go into self-time, a private space where you won't be disturbed. The next step will be to look into a personal exercise that will work to eliminate the conflict and cross it off the list of ignorance. Okay, so what we're doing here is we're working with a notebook. Okay, simple notebook here. You can even use a digital device if you want. And all we're doing is we're just keeping track of our day. How was our day today? Okay, what conflicts came up? What personal traumas have arisen? What belief systems do you feel have come up together that's causing conflict? Right? We have to go through that. This is exactly how I began. This was my journey 12 years ago, right? Looking into the idea of what I was going through, what setbacks were happening, what did I need to forgive, what did I need to bring love to? And again, through that process, over time, you become lighter, right? So we want to make sure we're keeping track, right? A lot of people say, Brad, what's my spiritual progress, right? Do I have like a progress bar here? Am I like 10% along, 20% along, 30% along? Well, as we're playing with the mind, there's no end to it, right? The mind is infinite. It's the idea of being able to track your progress through something like a journal, through something like a notebook, okay? I've taught this through Spirit Ambassadors, right? I've taught this through other videos in the past, the importance of having a notebook, okay? Make sure you use it. It's a great tool, all right? And again, we just want to keep track of the conflicts. We want to be aware of, again, what we're going through on a daily basis so that we know what to work on. We know what to resolve, okay? So next step, we're going to look into some personal exercises here. Okay, personal exercises to eliminate ignorance. The EQ method. Now, some of you who are familiar with my channel will probably be aware of this, about the EQ method. It's one of the sessions I offer on newearthteachings.com. Okay, EQ method. This method works in acknowledging all areas that you're currently aware of, containing them within a black ball, measuring their intensities, and releasing them through strength reinforcement, creating the perfect place, going to perfection, and using that strength to eliminate and purge the conflicting energies. At first, you may use images of the mind to symbolize you harnessing love energy, but as you move to the self, there will be no images, as you are one with self, and simply being with the self is all that's needed to cleanse ego and ignorance. The strength and love energy that remains enters into the body, and the process of surrender ferments into one's self. This method is available through private session on newearthteachings.com. Okay? Now the free methods here. BCR-TC technique. Again, for those of you who are on my channel quite regularly, you know this. This is the miniature version of the EQ method, using breathwork, calmness, reinforcement. You go into the place of perfection and accumulate strength and love energy, absorbing it into yourself, clearing away conflicts that arise and surrendering to the love energy within you. The TC, or the trigger clearing, happens when one is emotionally triggered and they utilize the strength within them to eliminate the trigger and surrender to the result. This technique is available for free on my YouTube channel. The black ball, white ball technique, similar to the BCR technique in the first stage of EQ method, containing conflicts within a central point, the black ball, and transmuting the effect with strength reinforcement, love energy. This technique is available for free on my YouTube channel. Then there's the new clarity technique that's just been released. The new level up from BCR-TC technique. Okay? Harmonizing and maintaining the perfect place, making it your pillar of strength to dissolve any and all conflict issues within. This technique is also available for free on my YouTube channel. Okay, moving on. So there's other personal exercises. Now, the following exercises are not my own, but have been created by others whom I recommend working with their techniques and methods. Okay, so there is the release technique, or the Sedona method. Okay, this was created by a fellow named Levenson. He passed away in the 1990s. He was a Western self-realized man who spent decades assisting many in reaching the top state, or self-realization. Okay, you can find the Sedona method on YouTube for free. Just type in Sedona method and you'll find a video, or just go down to the video description. Okay, the video description of all the resources I'm speaking of is there. So go to the video description, you'll see the links below. Okay, the second exercise, Self-Enquiry. This is probably the most powerful one. Okay, created by Sri Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi. It was this technique that enabled me to fully reach self-realization. Okay, through the 95% of the work that came towards my own methods. This in particular brought me to that achievement. The last 5% came through self-inquiry. For those who explore self-inquiry for the first time, it may seem confusing or difficult at first. But once you fully grasp it and understand what Maharshi is telling you to do through self-inquiry, it is one of the most simplest and profound methods there is in reaching self-realization. You can find audiobooks on the YouTube for free regarding self-inquiry. Again, the video links are below in the video description. Okay, so I'm very thankful for what Sri Ramana Maharshi was able to create, what he was able to share with everybody, which was the self-inquiry. Okay, so we'll be getting into more about the self-inquiry here shortly. But again, it is a very powerful technique, right? I used it one time, and that's what brought me into self-realization. Now, some people are saying, well, Brad, are all your videos going to be about self-realization? No, of course not. There's going to be more videos about, Jonas and channeling and talking about ETs and talking about the state of the world. I'm always going to continue to do that, guys. That's not going to end. But really, I'm bringing this awareness into you because I have always made a contract through myself saying that whatever it is that I experience, I share with you guys, right? That has been my entire path here for these near 13 years. That whatever I share, whatever I go into, I share it with all of you, right? Some of you may love it, some of you may not, but nonetheless, I'm sharing my journey here. This is all part of saying that if I can accomplish these things, you guys can accomplish these things as well too, right? Because I'm a human being just as you are. But it's about being able to look at all of these things, look at all these exercises, do all this work, understand self-realization, and you will understand true happiness, right? And this is, again, the most profound thing that's ever happened to me. When I hit self-realization, it was the greatest moment of my entire life. That's how powerful it is, right? I'll be getting into that in a little bit. Keeping it simple. There are many methods that exist, particularly within Eastern traditions, that can also help others reach self-realization, such as Kriya Yoga and other forms of yogic sciences. However, those need to be self-explored, as my own self-realization did not really involve those other practices. Okay, guys? So when I was doing my self-realization work, I didn't really touch Kriya Yoga hardly at all. I looked at it a little bit, did a few things with it, but no, I did not really touch it. The things that helped me are the exercises that I have previously mentioned. My own exercises, the exercise that was created by Levenson, and the exercise that was created by Ramana Maharshi. Okay, that's all I really used. I did not go to India. Okay, I did not get a guru. I did not study under a guru for 20 years and do any of that stuff. Okay, it is all, and you can do that if you want. If that's where you're feeling guided, then by all means go ahead. But that is not what I did. Right? I went through these simple practices and kept at it day after day. My goal as one who has reached self-realization is to keep the exercises and practices I recommend to you as simple as can be. Okay, this is the householder's path to self-realization. You do not require a guru or a spiritual teacher, as I never did. Okay, as you do these simple methods, your own self will be your guru. Spirit will be your guru. However, everyone has their own path, and if you feel a teacher or guru serves you best, that is the path for you to walk. Okay, but through my own experience, I did not need a physical guru. I did not need a physical spiritual teacher to do this. Right? All I needed was the commitment to self-realize, the commitment to go to God, the commitment to know the self, and I would not stop until I was there. And so this is where I was using all these simple practices like I've mentioned. Okay? Everybody can do this. It's just a matter of your willpower. It's all a matter in regards to what you feel you're dedicated towards, right? How far do you want to go? That's entirely up to you. If you decide not to even touch self-realization in this lifetime, that's fine, right? No one is responsible for you but you. Okay? Moving on now to daily practice. Through the exercises aforementioned, it's recommended to try at least one of them per day to begin. You have a variety of choices, and the key is to find the exercise that best suits you. Remember the commitment you make. If your desire is to go free, you must demonstrate that desire daily. Our goal is permanent freedom. To reach that, the ignorance within must be cleared, and this will bring an end to a high, volatile ego that has been the obstruction to the self. Be strong, be vigilant, and be determined along your path as you practice these methods daily. You will notice how simple all these techniques will be when you accumulate love and compassion through you. It is the simplest energy to accumulate within you, and the benefits are pure bliss itself. Remember, no problem is ever bigger than you. That is an illusion. Some of you may want to have a private session with me to help getting yourself started and helping with an action plan, and I'm always happy to do that, to book a session with you, okay? And you can get started upon the creative path of self-realization. Okay, so like I said, it's your commitment. It's not just the techniques that you use. It's your energy. It's how you present yourself to move forward in this. Okay, so like I said, we still have quite a few things to cover. But like I said, if you really have that passion, that commitment to go forward, if your desire is to know God, if your desire is to know the self, then this is going to help you. Those exercises that I talked about will help you every step of the way. God is you and always has been. God is not an entity outside of yourself, nor is God an intelligence that exists outside of you. You are God. You are the self. You are the I. The goal to self-realization is that when you reach realization, it is not the self you realize, but only the ignorance that was within you, obstructing you from returning to the self. So again, that's the important part here, is that we call it self-realization, but really it's not. It's that I have realized all the ignorance that was obstructing me from going to what has always been here, which is the I. And that's your goal in looking at this practical guide and looking at yourself. How much ignorance can you release? How much of the ego can you dissolve? That's really all it takes. It's about dissolving all these ignorances. It's about looking into the essence of love and staying as love. For that love is the self. That love is God. That love is I, right? And you're letting the love come through you, shine through you, right? And you're completely taking down all of these pillars and artificial constructs that ego and ignorance have created, right? So many of us are terrified of the world, right? We're terrified of the world because, again, we're giving so much into that emotional pain. We're, again, looking at the pain and pleasure. we're looking at all of these impermanences. We're looking at the idea of where the world is taking us, where we're going with the world. The world is always going to exist, right? We always go through phases because that's part of the mind process of what we're going through as a species here on this planet, right? The mind has cycles. It has ebbs and flows, and we are going to go through those ebbs and flows all together. It's like I've talked about since 2009. It's like you're on a roller coaster, and you can either have your hands up here screaming in happiness or saying, get me off, get me off, get me off, get me off, right? That's what's happening. And again, when you start to move into self-realization, right, it doesn't matter what's coming in front of you. It does not matter what is happening upon the planet. You're always like this, right? You're always happy. You're always joyful. You could have bombs dropping right beside you and blowing up right beside you. It will not take away your smile. It will not take away your happiness, because that person sees themselves beyond a body. They see themselves beyond the mind. They have known themselves. They have known the self. They have known God. They have known I, right? So again, the key to self-realization is to completely bring yourself into the permanence of bliss, into the permanence of happiness, into the permanence of I, of self. That is liberation. That is what's going to clear all of this away. Because again, when you have all of these selves, so to speak, walking on the planet, you're not going to have war. You're not going to have poverty. You're not going to have starvation. You're not going to have corrupt politics. You're not going to have corrupt governments. You're not going to have anything that creates obstruction to the self. Okay? This is exactly, like I said, what the masters have been trying to teach us for thousands and thousands of years. That again, to go to God, to be the self, you are devoid of any conflict whatsoever. There's no conflict. You don't want to do harm to anybody because you see everybody as yourself, right? You're in that state of self-realization. You're in that state of self-bliss. And the world is such a beautiful place. A lot of the extraterrestrial civilizations that exist beyond our world is very much on a path to self-realization, right? They are not destructive. They are not killing their own people. They are not killing their planet. They are not building constructs that are harming their planet or harming their people or harming any other form of life on their planet. This is why when Adronis came through, just last Friday webcast, he's saying this is why we really cannot explain it to you about what many of these other civilizations are like, because they don't live the way that you live. You're going through this Neanderthal phase right now. And that Neanderthal phase is the ego. We're watching the ego die. We're watching ignorance die because everything's coming to the light. Everything's being revealed here, right? There's nothing that's being kept under wraps anymore. There's nothing that's being kept secret. Everything's being exposed. That is the death of the collective ego that we are witnessing, right? And it's a process, and that's taking place right now, okay? So really keep that in mind. So when you are realized, the journey still continues. Your life path does not end with realization. Rather, from my experience, your life is only beginning, right? I haven't been in self-realization that long. It's been barely over about a week, right? And I'm feeling this beautiful unfolding of living life. And it feels like I'm just living life now. It feels like it's the beginning, right? We get out of confusion. We come into self-realization and say, life is just beginning. It's just beginning. I'm seeing all the illusions. I'm seeing all the veils. I'm seeing everything that this life is. And in your own way, in your own silence, in your own peace, you are peacefully, silently bringing love to the entire planet. You are peacefully and silently bringing love to the hearts of every single person that is on the planet. You're bringing love to the earth. You're bringing love to its people. You're bringing love to all life, right? And you're not boasting about it. You're not just waving a flag around and saying, hey guys, I'm self-realized. I'm in perfect harmony with permanence. Ha 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 ha. And I'm going to save you all. No, because that just becomes egotism in its own way. A great master always goes into their quiet space. They go into peace, and they silently, quietly bring love to not only the entire planet, not only to its people, but to the entire universe. Everything that's happening on the earth right now is affecting the entire universe. That's how powerful we are. We don't know that. Okay? So again, when you go into self-realization, your life is just beginning. When you're not in self-realization, you haven't even begun to live yet. Right? It's just the truth. You have not begun to live until you understand all the illusions that are around you and watching them dissolve. That's the beginning. God, the self, I, is the creative force. It is beyond all manifestation and all creation. It is far above and beyond the confines of the body and mind. It is beyond thought and the whole universe. To know the self is to go within and enter the creative unmanifest. Realization comes to you at the right moment. No thought intercedes it. It is a powerful feeling of clarity and bliss. In other words, you will know it when it happens. Right? I can't describe to you guys what it was like to go into that state of self-realization, to know God, right? Because there's no words to it. There's no mind. When you're going into self-realization, your mind is empty, it's quiet, it's clear. And you just feel, it's like you're just breaking through these barriers. But you cannot experience, you cannot really tell, you cannot convey what it's like to know God, to know the self. It's beyond words. I can't describe it to you. Right? So if they say, well, Brad, what did it feel like? I said, well, it's knowing the self. What can I say? I don't have any words for that because mind was not involved to getting yourself to know the self. Right? You do not use mind. You do not use thoughts. You do not use images. You do not use colors. You do not use anything that represents creative manifestation to look at going to God, to knowing God, to seeing that clarity. It's to feel that clarity, right? I can't describe it. No. It doesn't matter how hard I try. I'll never be able to describe it. You have to feel the clarity for yourself. And you know. How do you know you contacted God, Brad? I just know. I just know, right? I can't describe it to you. There's no words because mind is not involved. God is unchanging, ever present, yet still. God is forever in his infinite intelligence beyond all manifestation. God is in all things, yet remains in the unmanifest. God is the sustainer that holds everything in place. God is the personification of bliss and perfection. God is you, and you are God. This still does not explain the experience. This still does not explain what you go through. Right? None of this does. It's where, again, words will not tell you. Right? Because we always tell, oh, what does it feel like to do this? Or what does it feel like? Oh, it's exhilarating, it's happy, it's great, etc. You're still not emphasizing the feeling. You're still not being able to really share the bliss that you feel. You have to feel it for yourself, and then you will know. So for those of you who do decide to walk this path, right, you go into the video description, you see the techniques there, you start arranging those techniques to do them daily, right? Like I said, this is not something that can be taught to you, right? When I'm looking at other things relating to mind and all that stuff, sure, all that stuff can be taught because it's mind. There's information, there's exchange, there's words, okay? When you're looking at self-realization, it's beyond words. It's beyond mind, right? This is why it cannot be taught. There's guides, there's people who can assist, but you have to be the one that goes all the way. You're the one that's going to God. You're the one that's going to self, okay? And you will be challenged upon this path. This is not, again, like I said, a well-received path. You're not getting a warm welcome by being a self-realized being, although in heaven, you're basically looking at your angels celebrating. But humanity, no. Mm-mm. You're telling us to clear away all these things. You're telling us to get rid of logic. You're telling us to get rid of the ego. You're telling us to get rid of ignorance. You're telling us to basically transcend this entire world, that you will want freedom more than you will want the entire world. And that's right, right? That's what you're going to have to do. You have to want freedom. You want complete, permanent freedom, happiness, joy, love, more than you want anything in this world. You will want it more than you have friends. You will want it more than you have family. You will want it more than anything that this world can present to you. All of that is nothing compared to the pure, blissful happiness of permanence, to know the self and to know God, right? It's not to say that you're discarding your family, not at all. This is actually helping you to love others more than you could ever imagine, right? You're not seeing just a human family. You're seeing a soul family. You're not just seeing human friends. You're seeing friends of soul, right? You're not just seeing a world. You're seeing a world of spirit, right? That's what you're seeing. You're seeing the manifestations all stripped away and everything revealed barely. It's like a person who has completely stripped naked, right? And that person who is bare naked is self-realized. And you have all these other people that are just walking around with excess amounts of clothing on. And they're sweating and they're just, they're having a brutal time. And you say, why don't you just strip it off? Strip it off and be cool, like what I'm doing. Oh, you crazy? I'm not going to do that. I have to wear this garment. I have to wear this extra shirt. I need to wear this sweater. I need to wear this. I need to wear all these 100 pairs of socks that I'm wearing on my feet. I need to wear these 500 pieces of underwear. Right? And you're just piling on the excess clothing until you're just ready to suffocate. Well, that is exactly what the world does. The world tells you got to have more. You got to have more, you got to have more, you got to do more of this, you got to do more of that, you got to buy more of these things, you got to have more of this, these type of people in your life, more, until you basically just fall over. Because you have so much excess layers of clothing upon yourself. You are suffocating yourself. And that, again, is what the ego is telling you to do. Go ahead, get all these excess layers. Go ahead, fatten yourself up. Go ahead, go and eat these horrible things. Go ahead and yell at this person. Go ahead and start conflict. Go ahead and feel the separation illusion. Right? That's what the ego is. It is like that little proverbial devil that's just chatting in your ear. So what are you doing? You're getting rid of it. You're letting love completely destroy it, because that's what love is doing to it. Okay? It's not to say I'm being judgmental against the ego. It's nothing to do with that. The ego is a construct. It's not a person. Right? It's a construct. And you're seeing that dissolve. It's an individualized, artificially inflated construct that acts like a virus, and it acts like an entity. It almost acts like a type of artificial intelligence. Okay? It's not a person. It's a construct. It's a creation that has been brought forward. You have no sympathy when the ego dissolves. You're free. The shackles come off. You're completely boundless. It's a beautiful thing. Right? I'm still going through it myself, watching it dissolve each and every single day. And it's a beautiful thing because love is coming through. Okay? So everything that you are will support you upon this path, but know that the ego and ignorance are determined in keeping you in an impermanent, sufferable world. It is no more different than battling a virus. When you succumb to its determination, it's important that you catch yourself and remember the practices you perform daily, right? Because people can slip, they can trip under their own feet and say, oh, this person did this and this person. You're on the path of self-realization. Why are you concerned about that? That's conflict, right? You got to work with that. Dissolve away the ignorance. The ignorance is what's keeping you blind. It's like having a cataract in the eye. Right here. Having a cataract there. Having all this murkiness. So you cannot see what exists beyond this world. But once you start working on yourself through self-realization, through love, that murkiness, right, that cataract starts to fade away. It starts to dissolve. And that's your liberation. Now you can see all the veils. I see the illusions. I see all these things that have been spinning. I realize now what's not true. Great. That's you liberating yourself. All that is being taught to you guys here, everybody, is how to set yourself free. If you truly want to be free, you will never find it in the world. I don't care what you do. I don't care if you're a magnificent healer. If you're healing a bunch of people, you're still not free. Right? If you're a teacher, you're teaching a lot of people. That's great, but you're still not free. Right? If you're a Samaritan, right? If you're whatever, if you're a humanitarian, if you're a philanthropist, doesn't matter. You're not really setting anybody free. All you're doing is giving temporary relief to these things, right? Because a person has to look into themselves and set themselves free. They have to see what this nagging, gnawing thing is within themselves. And they say, I see you for what you are. I'm bringing my love forward. I'm dissolving all of that, just like you do in the BCR technique, right? Just like you do in the clarity technique, just like you learn in the EQ method. We're taking all of that energy, we're putting it at one particular point, we're bringing in love energy. That love energy is now stronger than that energy. The dense energy goes, love energy remains, and you're filling yourself up with that love, and you're surrendering to it, right? It's a surrender method. One who is realized holds only love, compassion, honesty, and truth within their heart. They exercise that strength every single day, working in silence. They do not boast about how enlightened they are, nor do they seek any praise. These are signs of ego. Everything that the ego and ignorance represents, they eliminate from their being, and they maintain the surrender within themselves. It is the humble of the humble, right? To walk into the path of self-realization is to develop humility. Like I said, you're just in the corner. You're in the background, and you're just working to bring so much love purely from self to the entire planet, purely into people's hearts, right? And that makes such a huge difference. It's like they make no noise, but what they bring to the world is a tidal wave of difference. You exist in a world where the majority of the population is under the blanket of ignorance. Very few will not comprehend what's become of you and who you are. To align to self-realization is to know God and to know the self, for they are one and the same. Right? You're going to get ridiculed, right? There are going to be people who literally think that you're crazy. Even people that follow a lot of spiritual practices, when you're telling them about self-realization and what you're learning through self-realization, they're going to think you're crazy. They're going to think you're actually egomaniacal. Oh, but you don't like the ego, and you don't love the ego, and we're supposed to be companions with the ego. You're not supposed to be companions with the ego, right? You're letting the ego die, right? You're letting love come in. Love is doing that. That's love's nature, is to destroy all that is impure, all that is unnatural. It goes bye-bye, all right? Give compassion to everyone, even those who appear the most corrupt. Okay, this is a big one, because not a lot of people can do that. We see people who are harming the world. We see people who are harming children. We see people who are harming each other, fighting and battling and murdering and killing and all that. And we just want to see them hang from the gallows, right? We want to see them ripped to shreds. We want to see them tied up to a firing squad and just blown to bits, right? We want to see something horrible done to them, right? And that's anger speaking. That's the anger, and that's the, well, Brad, it's the idea of getting justice. Well, here's the thing. You are not the judge, jury, and executioner, all right? The universe handles justice. It is the universe's job to be the ebb and the flow, right? To basically present what that person is going through and showing it back to them. You think that these people in that sense do not feel pain with what they're doing. Believe me, they are, right? But it is the universe's job to bring that. If you feel that you yourself are the judge, jury, and executioner, and all you want is blood, then you're no better off than that person, right? You are only staying in that particular degree because you're hurt. You're wounded by them. You're wounded by everything that they represent, and you only want bloodshed. You only want them to see that they're going into burn in hell and all that stuff. There is no hell, guys. There's no hell but what we create within our minds, right? Our own mind is the hell. But when you go beyond the mind, there is no hell. All there is permanence. All there is God, right? So the whole idea is that whenever you see angry people, people who you think are evil and hideous and horrible in that sense, you have to give them the one thing that they don't have: compassion. That's the path. That's the path of a self-realized one, is that they are giving compassion to everybody, to the people who have been hurt, and to the people who have delivered that hurt. It is no different in the eyes of one who is self-realized. That again, if you see a person who's murdered a lot of people, who have hurt children, all that, they've done so because they've lacked one thing: compassion. Because a compassionate person doesn't do such a thing, right? So that person is giving love, giving that pure love of the self to those who have been hurt, and giving pure love to that who is the accuser, who is the abuser, right? Who has delivered the hurt. They're actually getting a lot more compassion than the ones who have been hurt compared to the one who is in self-realization. And you may go up to that person and say, why are you doing that? Why are you giving that scumbag so much love? Did you forget what they've done? I have not forgotten what they have done at all. Then why are you giving them so much love? Why are you giving them so much compassion? Because it is what they lack more than you. And that's the answer. And you probably just stay quiet. I don't know what to say to that. That's why they've done what they've done. And when compassion comes into them, they'll never do something like that again in this lifetime or another lifetime or anything of that nature. Compassion is being the healer. Compassion is dissolving all of that rage, all of that fear, all of that apprehension, all of that anger and wrath and murderous intent that they had. Is that you are filling that person's heart with the pure love of God, the pure love of self, and they'll never do it again. Because now they know. They feel it voyeuristically of what they've done to other people. That's what compassion reveals to them. That's what love reveals. They've seen how they've hurt others, and it strikes so strong with them, they would never do something like that again. That's the greatest gift you could give anybody, because that is what the world is lacking the most right now, is love and compassion. There's so many people that are just holding up the noose and ready for the gallows and ready to execute these people, to be judge, jury, and executioner, to be judge, to judge everybody. Brad, they did this. Brad, they did that. And the reason they did it is because they had no compassion. They lacked compassion. And that's what you're giving through the self. It's being given to you, and it's being given to that person who has caused so much harm, so that they never do it again. Because compassion is teaching them this. Really think about that. All right, this was revealed to me today when I was talking about it. Spirit comes right in and saying, they do these things because the thing that they lack the most is compassion. It is the thing that you have. It is the thing that they have not have. Because that's what the ego and the ignorance does. It blocks out that compassion. All it is just rage and fire and hatred and fear and sadness, apprehension, all of that. And the thing that they lack is that love and that compassion. And when a person comes along who's just overflowing with that love and compassion, passes it on to that person will never do any misdeeds like that ever again. They see it. They see the light, as it were. They see God. And they become humble before God. It's exactly why Jesus never harmed anybody. Jesus could have used all his great ability to strike everybody dead that was trying to put him up on the cross, that was trying to crucify him. He didn't. He let it all happen because he was doing forgiveness work upon all of them as this was happening to him. But yeah, with his ability, he could have struck them all down dead. Guys, he could have been judge, jury, and executioner. He didn't. And he's heralded as one of the most loving and beautiful, perfect people we've ever known. Yet we're not being like him. Why is that? Because you're lacking compassion. Because you have little faith in regards to the power of compassion and the power of God. That you really are. You really need to look at that. And you will understand, you will know that those people that do harm need the greatest compassion. They need more compassion than the people who have been victimized have. All right? So look into that. One who is self-realized is in beingness. They are witnessing to everything. They are witnesses to everything, and their actions are as quiet as a still pond, but as impactful as a tidal wave. They're just this silent presence in the corner. But again, everything that they do is just creating tidal waves. A lot of the change that we're seeing here upon the planet, everybody, has actually become more potent because of the masters. The masters have been giving forward this powerful wave of energy, this powerful wave of love, because they are self-realized, because they are so strong and so potent with love, that they are in the background, either in the body or beyond it, giving all of this love to the entire planet, creating this incredible tidal wave of change, because that's what's happening. We're seeing the death of the collective ego. Challenges do await you, but stay true to the bliss of realization once you reach it, and you will see your attachments to the world fall away. You will see souls instead of people, true spirit family beyond human family and friends. You will be free and unbounded from all veils of illusion. Okay? Powerful thing to keep in mind here, to consider. Self-Enquiry and surrender. So we're nearly finished here through the presentation. Once the presentation is done, if you guys have any questions, you can put it in the live chat, or if there's none, then I'll just be checking out comments here and there. All right. So self-inquiry and surrender. As mentioned earlier, self-inquiry and surrender are the two known methods to reach self-realization. It cannot come any other way. As I mentioned, the practices I have participated in have mainly come from the methods involving surrendering, removing the ignorance and surrendering to the moment, giving up and relinquishing all belief systems, surrendering yourself to the divine, letting God in, and handing your responsibilities to God. How deep you wish to go with this is entirely in your hands. There have been those who have completely surrendered everything of themselves to God. When to eat, when to drink, when to sleep, and to perform work. In time, God, the Self, will have all your responsibilities, and through intuition, all of your actions will be brought into place divinely and in perfect harmony. In the beginning, this will sound impossible to grasp. Only in time will it begin to become clearer as you will witness it happen. Okay, you see a lot of people in the East that have completely surrendered everything that they are to God. They won't even get up and eat or drink until there is that kind of divine providence that they get up and go to eat, get up and go to drink, get up and go to the bathroom. Right? They have completely devoted themselves to letting God handle every facet of their life, right? And they're happy. They're extremely happy. They're extremely joyful. They're extremely in bliss because they have no burden responsibilities on their shoulders at all. They have given it all to God, right? I'm not saying you guys have to go into that deep level if that's what you want to do, right? I don't know if I'm going to go into that deep level myself, but nonetheless, that is the nature of surrender. You give everything to God, right? Everything comes to God. And like I said, as you follow this path a lot more, in time, it just feels natural to surrender more and more and let God take care of it, right? So self-inquiry is what I utilize at the very end, leading me to self-realization. As I said, it's important that you understand the core of self-inquiry before you decide to utilize it. If you do not understand a technique, it will be of no use. Self-inquiry bases itself on the single question, who am I? You must find out who the I really is and discover its source and origin, okay? You're not going to find that through the body. You are not going to find that through the mind. You are not going to find that through thoughts. You are not going to find that through the universe. You are not going to find that through creation. You have to go beyond it all. It's like I said, when you come to God, there's no thoughts that take you there. There's no words that take you there. Nothing. It's just isness, right? And you are with God. You feel it. You feel it within all of your heart. This is God. I'm with God. I'm with self. Because the self has been here all along. What I was aware of, what I've realized, is all of the ignorance that was in the way. That's prevented me from going to God, from knowing who I really am. So that's how realization is to be aware of your ignorance, right? That's the key. So again, self-inquiry, very powerful technique, but you really want to research it a lot, right? Really understand the process, understand the concept of what Ramana Maharshi tells people what to do when you go into self-inquiry, right? It's about being able to understand that process, because I didn't understand it at first. I had to research it quite a bit before I finally get, oh, okay, I see what Ramana Maharshi is saying, right? I went in there, I did it, and that was the self-realization, okay? So give it a try. And like I said, you'll find all of the all the links in the video description, okay? So, questions regarding this presentation. So it is now Q&A time. For those of you who are here with me live, if you do have any questions, you can put it in the chat. Otherwise, I said I'll look into some questions that may come up through comments. More videos will come on self-realization. This presentation is only an introduction to helping you get started. As I mentioned, self-realization is a self-exploring and self-examining path. It cannot be taught to you, as you must be the teacher, as you have all the tools, and most importantly, the dedication to eliminate the ignorance of ego from yourself. So should you have more questions, you can go to newearthteachings.com and go to the contact page, and you can drop me an email if you like, all right? But again, it's all about practice. You have to explore yourself. You have to look into these methods and say, yeah, this feels good. Okay, I'll do the EQ method, or I'll do the release technique, or I'll do self-inquiry, etc. And you just start working, right? Your commitment has to come first before the techniques, all right? So thank you, everybody. Thank you for tuning in with me for this live broadcast today regarding a practical guide to self-realization. All right. So I don't see any response on the top chat. I guess you guys are just kind of absorbing everything as I'm sharing. So if you do have any questions, you can feel free to put any comments on the video or drop me an email through newerteachings.com contact. Okay. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for tuning into this presentation today, and I'll speak to you again in another perspective of the now. Take care.